Hey guys, in this month's Historical Fiction 101, I'm going to be sharing with you some book recommendations that take place in the 1980s. So, yeah, I was born in the 1980s. Makes me feel pretty old. So yeah, I have a hard time considering books set in the 1980s as historical fiction. But yeah, it's kind of reaching a point that, yeah, the 1980s are definitely historical fiction now. Once again, makes me feel pretty old. So as always, I'm going to be looking down here at my laptop. I'm going to be on Goodreads, reading off the synopsises for all of these book recommendations. So yeah, now is the time. Pull up your Goodreads, and if any of these books sound like your cup of tea, start adding them to your TBR. First up, A Teaspoon of Earth and Sea by Dina Nayeri. Growing up in a small rice farming village in 1980s Iran, 11-year-old Saba Hafazi and her twin sister Matab are captivated by America. They keep lists of English words and collect illegal Life magazines, television shows, and rock music. So when her mother and sister disappear, leaving Saba and her father alone in Iran, Saba is certain that they have moved to America without her. But her parents have taught her that all fate is written in the blood, and that twins will live the same life even if separated by land and sea. As she grows up in the warmth and community of her local village, falls in and out of love, and struggles with the limited possibilities in post-revolutionary Iran, Saba envisions that there is another way for her story to unfold. Somewhere it must be that her sister is living the Western version of this life, and where Saba's world has all the grit and brutality of real life under the new Islamic regime, her sister's experience gives her freedom and control that Saba can only dream of. Yeah, I read and reviewed this book years ago. You guys, oh god, I loved it. If I'm not mistaken, this book was like my #1 favorite book of that year. Whatever year it was that I read this, it was like my #1 favorite book. I loved it so much. Next up, The Air Affair by Jasper Fforde, and this is book 1 in the Thursday Next series. And yeah, I believe I've read all the books in this series, maybe except for 1 or 2 of them, but yeah, I've read a good majority of them. Great Britain, circa 1985. Time travel is routine. Cloning is a reality. Dodos are the resurrected pet of Joyce. And literature is taken very, very seriously. Baconians are trying to convince the world that Francis Bacon really wrote Shakespeare. There are riots between the Surrealists and Impressionists, and thousands of men are named John Milton, an homage to the real Milton, and a very confusing situation for the police. Amidst all this, Archeron Hades, third most wanted man in the world, steals the original manuscript of Martin Chuzzlewit and kills a minor character, who then disappears from every volume of the novel ever printed. But that's just a prelude. Hades' real target is the beloved Jane Eyre, and it's not long before he plucks her from the pages of Bronte's novel. Enter Thursday Next. She's the special operative, renowned literary detective, and she drives a Porsche. With the help of her uncle Mycroft's prose portal, Thursday enters the novel to rescue Jane Eyre from this heinous act of literary homicide. It's tricky business. All of these interlopers running about Thornfield, and deceptions run rampant as their paths cross with Jane, Rochester, and Miss Fairfax. Can Thursday save Jane Eyre and Bronte's masterpiece? And what of the Crimean War? Will it ever end? And what about those annoying black holes that pop up now and again, sucking things into time-space voids? Yeah, if you can't tell, the Thursday Next series is really bizarre. They all take place in a alternative version of England in the 1980s. It's insane and it's crazy. And yeah, they all have something to do with like literature, if you can't tell. Thursday is always running around inside the books. There's like a special machine that you can enter into books and interact with book characters and whatnot. It's crazy, but it's great. Next up, Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. This one has a very short synopsis. I kept looking for like a longer synopsis on Goodreads and I couldn't find one. This is the only synopsis available. Set over one school year in 1986, Eleanor and Park is the story of two star-crossed misfits, smart enough to know first love almost never lasts, but brave and desperate enough to try. So yeah, you know what? This book, back when it first came out on Goodreads, or sorry, not Goodreads, but YouTube rather, like on booktube, when this book first came out, it was huge and it was popular, but I never got into it. It just never really seemed that compelling to me. But yeah, and I didn't even know it took place in the 80s. Seriously, I don't think I realized it took place in the 80s, but yeah, here it is on this list. Next up, Tell the Wolves I'm Home by Carol Rivka Brunt. 1987. There's only one person who has ever truly understood 14-year-old June, and that's her uncle, the renowned painter Finn Weiss. Shy at school and distant from her older sister, June can only be herself in Finn's company. He is her godfather, confidant and best friend. So when he dies, far too young, of a mysterious illness her mother can barely speak about, June's world is turned upside down. But Finn's death brings a surprise acquaintance into June's life, someone who will help her to heal and to question what she thinks she knows about Finn, her family, and even her own heart. At Finn's funeral, June notices a strange man lingering just beyond the crowd. A few days later, she receives a package in the mail. Inside is a beautiful teapot she recognizes from Finn's apartment, and a note from Toby, the stranger, asking for an opportunity to meet. As the two begin to spend time together, June realizes she's not the only one who misses Finn, and if she can bring herself to trust this unexpected friend, he just might be the one she needs the most. Next up, Let the Right One In by John Lindqvist. Oh Lord, I definitely butchered the pronunciation of that one. I have definitely heard about this book, and there's been numerous adaptations of this book, but yeah, for whatever reason, I've never read this book, and I've never seen the adaptations of this book. You guys, I need to fix that. It is autumn 1981 when the inconceivable comes to Blackberg, a suburb in Sweden. The body of a teenage boy is found, emptied of blood, the murder rumored to be part of ritual killing. 12-year-old Oscar is personally hoping that revenge has come at long last, revenge for the bullying he endures at school day after day. But the murder is not the most important thing on his mind. A new girl has moved in next door, a girl who has never seen a Rubik's Cube before, but who can solve it at once. There is something wrong with her, though something odd. And she only comes out at night. Yeah, if you can't guess, once again, through pop culture alone, even though I've never read this book, even though I've never watched these movies, I know that this girl is a vampire. This is a book about vampires. This little girl is a vampire. Next up, My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Abby and Gretchen have been best friends since 5th grade when they bonded over a shared love of E.T., roller skating parties, and scratch and sniff stickers. But when they arrive at high school, things change. Gretchen begins to act different, and as the strange coincidences and bizarre behavior start to pile up, Abby realizes there's only one possible explanation. Gretchen, her favorite person in the world, has a demon living inside her, and Abby is not about to let anyone or anything come between her and her best friend. With help from some unlikely allies, Abby embarks on a quest to save Gretchen, but is our friendship powerful enough to beat the devil? Oh my god, really? Really? Is this girl possessed by the devil? And yeah, looking through like reviews of this book, it sounds like it takes place in South Carolina in like the 1980s. Next up, Una, Out of Order by Margarita Montemore. It's New Year's Eve, 1982, and Una Lockhart has her whole life before her. At the stroke of midnight, she will turn 19, and the year ahead promises to be one of consequence. Should she go to London to study economics or remain at home in Brooklyn to pursue her passion for music and be with her boyfriend? As the countdown to the new year begins, Una faints and awakens 32 years in the future in her 51-year-old body. Greeted by a friendly stranger in a beautiful house she's told is her own, Una learns that with each passing year she will leap to another age at random, and so begins Una Out of Order. Oh, this sounds really like kind of charming and, you know, like might give you like a midlife crisis. I don't know. Next up, Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've not read this book, but it's all over the place, like on Goodreads. People love this book. And yeah, it won for Best Historical Fiction back in 2021. Malibu, August 1983. It's the day of Nina Riva's annual end of summer party, and anticipation is at fever pitch. Everyone wants to be around the famous Rivas. Nina, the talented surfer and supermodel, brothers Jay and Hud, one a championship surfer, the other a renowned photographer, and their adored baby sister Kit. Together, the siblings are a source of fascination in Malibu and the world over, especially as the offspring of the legendary singer Mick Riva. The only person not looking forward to the party of the year is Nina herself, who never wanted to be the center of attention, and who has also just been very publicly abandoned by her pro tennis player husband. Oh, and maybe Hud, because it is long past time to confess something to the brother from whom he's been inseparable since birth. Jay, on the other hand, is counting the minutes until nightfall, when the girl he can't stop thinking about promised she'll be there. And Kit has a couple secrets of her own, including a guest she invited without consulting anyone. By midnight, the party will be completely out of control. By morning, the Riva mansion will have gone up in flames. But before that first spark, in the early hours before dawn, the alcohol will flow, the music will play, and the loves and secrets that shaped this family's generations will all come bubbling to the surface. Next up, The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. And this is a book that it sounds like it has two alternating timelines. There's like a present day timeline and a timeline in the 1980s. So in upstate New York in 1982, Viv Delaney wants to move to New York City, and to help pay for it, she takes a job as the night clerk at the Sundown Motel in Fell, New York. But something isn't right at the motel. Something haunting and scary. So then, yet in 2017 in upstate New York, Carly Kirk has never been able to let go of the story of her Aunt Viv, who mysteriously disappeared from the Sundown before she was born. She decides to move to Fell and visit the motel, where she quickly learns that nothing has changed since 1982, and she soon finds herself ensnared in the same mysteries that claimed her aunt. And the last recommendation that I have here for books set in the 1980s, The Marriage Plot by Jeffrey Eugenides. It's the early 1980s. The country is in a deep recession, and life after college is harder than ever. In the cafes on College Hill, the wised-up kids are inhaling Dorita and listening to the talking heads. But Madeline Hannah, dutiful English major, is writing her senior thesis on Jane Austen and George Eliot, purveyors of the marriage plot that lies at the heart of the greatest English novels. As Madeline tries to understand why it became laughable to read writers like Cheever and Updike, who wrote about the suburbia Madeline and most of her friends had grown up in favor of reading the Marquise de Sade, who wrote about deflowering virgins in 18th century France, real life in the form of two very different guys intervenes. Leonard Bankhead, charismatic loner, college Darwinist, and lost Portland boy, suddenly turns up in a semiotic seminar, and soon Madeline finds herself in a highly charged, erotic, and intellectual relationship with him. At the same time, her old friend Mitchell Grammaticus, who's been reading Christian mysticism and generally acting strange, resurfaces obsessed with the idea that Madeline is destined to be his mate. Over the next year, as the members of the Triangle in this amazing spellbinding novel graduate from college and enter the real world, events force them to reevaluate everything they learned in school. Leonard and Madeline move to a biology laboratory on Cape Cod, but can't escape a secret responsible for Leonard's seemingly inexhaustible energy and plunging moods. And Mitchell, traveling around the world to get Madeline out of his mind, finds himself face to face with ultimate questions about the meaning of life, the existence of God, and the true nature of love. Are the great love stories of the 19th century dead, or can there be a new story written for today and alive to the realities of feminism, sexual freedom, prenups, and divorce? With devastating wit and abiding understanding of and affection for his characters, Jeffrey Eugenides revives the motivating energies of the novel, while creating a story so contemporary and fresh that it reads like the intimate journal of our own lives. So you guys, that is it for my book recommendations for books that take place in the 1980s. So in the comments below, have any of you guys read these books? Love them, hate them, just let me know. Any books that I should add to this list. Yeah, anybody else old like me, born in the 1980s, let's, commiserate about it. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.